So I want to thank you all for coming to this panel. I hope you are having a fantastic time here at Springboard. And I do my panels a little bit differently than maybe some of the other panels that you've attended. So what I tend to do is I talk for a little bit, and then each of my panelists will come up and speak for 10 minutes. So it's almost like a little mini speech within the topic itself. So I don't do the question and then run down the line. I kind of feel that every time you do that, by the time it gets to the end of the line, the person says, yeah, I don't have much to contribute because that's what I was going to say. So I try to find panelists who have something to talk about almost as a subject matter expert, and that's what we have here. So I'm going to give you a little bit of how it'll go. We'll speak each for about 10 minutes. Q&A will be at the end. I do have time for that, so I just ask that you wait so that I make sure each of my panelists has time to speak. For those of you who don't know, I am a big fan of superheroes and sci-fi and science fiction. So I'm going to start off with a quote from Spider-Man. Right? And Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. And this is really what this panel is about, this broker panel, right? So we're going to talk about how to interface with brokers, how to grow your business with brokers. But before I get started, I'm going to take a page from one of the panelists I heard yesterday. Now, there's people out in the hallway, and what I'd like to do is on the count of 3, we make as much noise as possible so that the people in the hallway say, like, what the hell's going on in there? So are we good with that? We make the noise, yell, claps. All right? All right, ready? Right? Thank you, Marty. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Thank you, everybody. And of course, you see people popping their head and going, what's going on in there? And thank you, Marty, for that. I told you I was going to steal it, man. So first, a couple things. I'll get started. My name is Alicia Visconti. I am the CEO and president of Franserv. Franserv, by far, is the largest broker network. And I really will tell you, when I started in franchising, which was 10 years ago, I started as a broker for Franserv. Now, we call ourselves consultants, so I'm going to use the word broker in this group. I started in Franserv as a broker, knew nothing, never owned a franchise, never worked at a franchise. I did say that I could spell the word, so I did have that going for me. And that was all I knew. But when I came in, I was thrilled. I got to help people change their lives through franchise ownership. Being a broker was a fabulous thing for me. My old career is life and career coaching, so I love helping people, changing their lives simply by owning franchises. So it was amazing for me. And that's what I did. For about almost 2 years, I was a broker for Franserv. Excuse me. And then, out of the blue, so it seemed, our founder, Tim Bleakley, decided to retire and approached me and wanted to know if I wanted to buy the business. So I thought about it for like 2 seconds and said, yeah, of course. And that's it. I bought Franserv in 2016, and we've taken it, thanks to my team and my brokers and the brands who all support us, and I see a lot of our customers, our clients here. We've grown that to be the largest, and this year we were recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the 5,000 fastest growing companies in America. And so I'm very proud of that. And so when we think about broker relationships, not everybody knows what a broker is, and that's really, we help people to own franchises. And when I'm losing my voice. Listen, there's nothing better than a Jersey girl with a scratchy voice, so you're just gonna have to deal with this. Maybe I'll wrap up less than 10 minutes, but when you think about brokers, and you say that word, people can sometimes have very different reactions. That's why we don't broker anything. It's why we call ourselves consultants. But I want to do on my segment the 3 greatest myths. I polled my team, I went to my team and I said, what do you guys always hear that's wrong, that people think about a broker group? What do the brands think that's not really very accurate? The first one was that all broker groups are the same, and they're not. There's a number of broker groups, and thinking that they're all the same is like saying, all flavors of ice cream are the same, or that all franchise brands are the same. So just because you have a good experience with a broker doesn't mean you're going to have another good experience with another broker group, or vice versa. So I would encourage you to do some due diligence, right? It's not that they're better or worse. Like, do you like chocolate? Thank you very much. Do you like chocolate or vanilla? Not one is better than the other, right? So, but you got to find your flavor with your broker groups, right? What clicks with you? There's some that are more, formal and buttoned up. There's others like me who are a little crazy, right? So you have to find, I always say your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So you got to find what works for you, for what your brand represents. So that's number one. There's also different methods in being a broker group. Some make you come, not make you, but I mean, you go to their conventions, some it's a option. Yeah, you just have to find. Prices are different, so don't think they're all the same. So that's myth number one, right, that all of them are the same. Do your due diligence. Second is, all right, I'm a brand, I joined yesterday. Where's the money raining from the sky? Like it's been a whole 24 hours. Why don't I have all these deals that I was told brokers do, okay? Like everything in franchising and like everything in life, it's a relationship, right? You can't get married and then live happily ever after just because you have the marriage license. You have to work it. Just because you're in the broker network doesn't mean you automatically get placements. You must engage these people. They're real people. They have fears. They have families. They work to get their leads. I was a broker. I almost didn't join because, with all due respect, I knew I could close. I didn't know if you guys could close. And I'm turning my livelihood over to you with the hope that you can. That's a lot of trust that has to be developed. So the brands that really excel with us are ones that humanize the experience with the brokers. Treat them with respect. Treat them as an extension of your marketing team. So that's myth number two. Myth number three is that every single brand should join a broker group. Like that's how it is. And that's not correct. We turn down, I know it sounds crazy, but we turn down a lot of brands. And it's not because they have maybe one or two or zero. It's not necessarily the size of your brand. It's, can you support? Do you have the infrastructure to support a broker network? Because if you're taking more than 24 hours on a territory check when a broker sends, is this available, and you're taking more than 24 hours, we're moving on. You have to be able to respond to that person quickly to get their trust. So if you're answering the phone and doing the webinar and cleaning the toilets and getting the donuts, you're probably not ready for a broker group. If you're small but you have a team, then we can help you. And we work with very tiny brands, but it's not the size, because it's a waste of time for you and you're only going to aggravate the brokers. So that's why I say do your due diligence and talk to your team, and if it's the right thing to do, and find the one that works best for you. And then the last thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to have Joan. Joan, can you stand for a minute? Joan is my senior vice president. She's one of my right arms, and she is part of the team that brings brands in. I will be on this panel, and I will stay for a little bit, but I am out of here almost when this ends. So I'm going to have Joan. I'll answer some questions, but if you have more questions or like what's for, then just see her, because I'm going to book out of here, and I don't want to be rude. I just wanted to let you know that. All right? And then what I'm going to do, because I do things differently, and we don't do the panel the same way, I'm going to turn it over to Jason and bring Jason up to the podium. I'm going to sit down, and my panelists will come up in front of the podium because they really are my superstars. So thank you, everybody. And now take notes. If you don't take notes, you're going to regret it. I know what these guys are going to say. They're going to give you some real nuggets of gold. Bring up your little... Steal my water.
There we go.
Whoop. Wrong one.
All right, my name is Jason Olson. I'm founder and CEO of Image Studios. We're a salon suite franchise based in Salt Lake City. We've got 87 units open and another 40 under construction right now. I started the company in 2010, and I started franchising in 2016. And I very clearly remember the first IFA I went to in 2015 before I made the leap into franchising. And I sat at all sorts of classes and roundtables, and I remember hearing from so many people, be prepared when you join the broker groups and the consultant groups. You're just going to be flooded with leads. It's going to be crazy, and you're just going to sell 100 licenses. And so I come back from that. One of the first things we did when we started franchising was we joined like 6 broker groups and sat around and wondered where the hell's all the leads, right? And we did the spray and pray method, which was not obviously strategic and did not work. So for about a year and a half, we did pretty much nothing. We paid the fees to join. We got a few leads here and there. And one of the things that we did wrong was we didn't spend the proper time with the key people at the consultant groups. We've got a few of them here. I see Travis with Sidekick and Red over at IFPG and Alicia with FranServe. And then you've got several other groups that you can talk to, but you need to spend some time with these people and find out if you're a good fit with them, and find out who some of the top consultants are that are referring leads to brands that are like yours. I would say it's really important too to really assess the inventory that they also have. Are there 5 other competitors currently with that group and you're going to be the 6th? That makes it a little challenging, right? Because if your competitors have 3 or 4 or 500 locations open and they're closing deals and you're brand new with one franchisee, the consultants are going to look at these different brands in the same category and think about, well, who's actually going to close this? It's probably going to be Group A that's got the momentum, right? So it's going to be tough to get that traction. So when we first started, we really put a lot of effort. Once we figured out what we were doing wrong, which was we weren't engaging the consultants before, during, and after these conferences. And so I think one of the best things we did was consulting with the leaders at these groups, finding out, hey, who are your top performers? Who are sending leads in our investment level, right? We're a high-level investment. It's about $1 million to build a store. So it's a different candidate than someone that might be interested in a home services brand. But you want to look and see who are the targeted people that I need to connect with and get to know and spend some time with. Like Alicia said, this is a relationship business. Consultants spend a lot of time and a lot of money generating leads that they're working with for many, many weeks, maybe many months, sometimes several years at a time before they're ready to refer them over to a couple of brands. And the consultants have invested all this energy. Their biggest concern is, are you going to be able to close this deal, like Alicia said? And so one of the things we started doing was before the conferences, we'd get our hit list of top people that we wanted to make sure we got to know and spend some time with. And we connected with them on LinkedIn beforehand, started a conversation, told them we were new to the group, we're super excited to be coming, and would love to get to spend some time with them when we get there. We'd also mail little care packages to the consultants, because a lot of these conferences, they don't want you to bring anything and give out for obvious reasons, because then consultants walk away with all this stuff they got to bring home. But we'd send them T-shirts with our brand on it. We'd send them water bottles with our brand. We'd send them stickers for their computer. And we'd see the consultants wear it, like with this stuff on their computer. They'd have our power banks, our water bottles at the conferences. What you're trying to do is catch their attention and make them pay attention to what you're doing with your brand. And I would say one thing that I think is extremely important, and especially, it's probably been 6 or 7 years since we started using consultant groups, is I've noticed over the last 6 or 7 years, there's a lot less founders that come to these conferences. The founders there's just not as many around. There's a lot more PE and FSOs that are there, which is super important to grow your brand. But I really believe firmly that if you're a founder and you're still involved, you need to be at those conferences to tell your story. There is magic for the founder's story to be told, because the consultants are going to tell that story to their candidates when they're introducing them to your brand. And so when founders don't engage and go to these conferences, I think it's a missed opportunity, because there is really, really some serious magic that a founder brings to the table to be able to tell that story. What is your why? Why are you doing this? What are you passionate about? And why did you get into this business? And then when you get to those conferences, as you guys might know, you have just a few minutes at a time to pitch your opportunity, right? So if you think about what a consultant has to go through at these conferences, they are sitting for 2 or 3 days listening to presentations back to back for 8 hours. That is a lot of work for a consultant to do, and it's also a lot of time to remember who's saying what and which brand they're with. So you really got to think about what that presentation is going to be in 5 minutes and make sure that you make an impact. So my brother and I, who's my co-founder, we would get prepared for these conferences. We'd script it out, and we would, no joke, probably rehearse in our hotel room 20 to 30 times before we went up to present. I know that sounds crazy, but we nailed the presentation because we were super prepared. And we would bring all the energy, we'd bring all sorts of fun stuff. I mean, one time we chopped a head off a rubber chicken in front of consultants at the table, and we've told great stories, we've done all sorts of crazy stuff, but we stand out. But the substance is important, right? You can't just get up there and be funny and do crazy stuff. I've seen people dress up in costumes, they've rapped to music about their brand, but they're still getting a message across, which is who we are, who is our ideal candidate, and why should you send us your leads? And most importantly then, how do we close them, right? Because like I said, the consultants want to make sure you've got a dialed in process. I think one of the things we also did wrong for a long time was we didn't have a buttoned up discovery process. It was too long, there was too many steps, there was 8 calls that took 6 weeks. We felt it was necessary to have these calls and all this discovery in place, but we started realizing a lot of these things were redundant, they were overlapping, and we could consolidate into a 4-week process with 6 calls that made it a lot more efficient, right? Because if a consultant's sending you someone, they're sending them to at least a couple other brands as well to investigate. And who engages that person the fastest and keeps that process going is typically the one that's gonna win the deal. And so we found our process was also a bit too long and not really well defined. And so they're also very interested in what your process looks like. How are you going to move people from one step to the next, and then get them through to the end to closing days? So I would say, again, the consultant mindset, it's super important when you are working with these candidates that your development person is obviously doing frick and frack, doing constant communication with the consultants, making sure that they're kept abreast of every step of the way. I do a founder's call with every candidate towards the end of the process before they join Meet the Team Day. It's kind of that final interview that I do. Every time I get off a founder's call with a candidate, I look up the consultant's name and I personally call them and just say, hey, I just had a call with your candidate, here's how it went. Typically by the time they get to founder's call, they're someone that we want to see at Meet the Team Day, but it's just that final step. But the consultants really love that I'm also reaching out and giving them some feedback and telling them what I liked about the candidate. And it's not just my development people that are reaching out, but I'll also get engaged and talk to them. But also the thing that I've also found has been super impactful has been, what do you do in between conferences, right? So you go to these conferences every 6 months, but 6 months is a long time. And there's a lot going on. There could be 100, 200, 300 brands that these consultants are repping and looking at constantly. And you need to make sure that you stay top of mind in between the conferences. And I think one of the most important things that people forget about is it's not the conference itself, but it's the time in between. You also have to engage, stay in touch, communicate, and just make sure you stay on their radar. I've called consultants that I know that are strong consultants that do a lot of deals who aren't sending us leads, and call them up and say, hey, I'd like to spend 30 minutes on Zoom with you, do a founder's call with you, and tell you more about our brand. And a lot of times these consultants they love it because they just need to know a little bit more. Again, they're looking and hearing so many presentations in a short amount of periods every 6 months. They're typically going to refer to their top 5 or 10 brands that they know and love and have a relationship with. So you've got to build that relationship. It does not build itself. If you do not put the time and effort into that, the conferences are obviously paramount, but it's the time in between that I think is really critical. Another thing that we've been doing for years that has been extremely effective as well is the communication that we have with the consultants after the person joins the brand, right? So the consultants build a relationship with these people. Some of them have been friends with them for years. Some of them went to college together. I mean, these are people that are important in their lives. And consultants have a strategy, which is very smart, which is to engage their candidates after they've been placed over time and try and get referrals. And that's where they get a lot of their business too, is they'll get referrals from people they've placed who are happy, they're loving it. They'll refer a friend or family member who's looking at a franchise opportunity. And so the consultants are building a very valuable network that is extremely important. So what we do, and I have consultants come up to me at every conference and shake my hand and just say, you guys are like the only brand that does this, and I love it. But I have my ops team text me every time there's a milestone of success. So when a candidate or a franchisee goes through training and completes that successfully and they've received their certificate from us, I get a text, hey, so-and-so franchisee in Madison, Wisconsin just went through training and here's their consultant. Then I'll reach out, text the consultant and say, hey, good news, this person that has gone through our training program just completed successfully. What this is, once they sign a commercial lease, we send out a text. I let them know that they've passed a major milestone. Once they open for business, hey, they just had their grand opening. In our case, we're leasing salon suites to beauty professionals. So when a franchisee hits 100% occupancy, which is a huge win, that's also a big moment. I'll take some time to reach out to the consultants and let them know, hey, your person just hit 100% occupancy in 6 months after opening, like major success. What I'm doing is giving the consultants an opportunity to reach out and to contact that person when good things are going on. Because at multiple times during the process, once a franchisee joins, they go through these ups and downs of fear and excitement and everything else in between. And if a consultant doesn't know what's going on and they reach out to connect with a candidate post-close just to see how things are going, what if they call them on a day that is just one of those oh shit moments where they're just having a horrible day, they're freaking out, they just signed a lease and they're terrified, or they just signed a lease and they're excited, right? They don't want to walk into any gunfire, because ultimately they're hoping that if they can reach them during a great time when they're in a great mindset, that's a great opportunity to possibly get some referrals. And so we give them the opportunity to know, hey, timing is great. You might want to reach out. You don't even need to mention that we talked. If you want to, you can. But it's a great peaking moment of emotion where these people are super excited. They've had some success. And I would say that is probably one of the biggest things consultants love, is they know that after the sale closes, we keep them posted for the duration of the time they're with us. I mean, 2-3 years down the road, if they open another location or have another milestone, we're still texting them way down the road so that they have a finger on the pulse of what's going on with that candidate. And I think that is one of the biggest things we've been doing that has helped us, because these consultants really see that it's not just getting them to the finish line, but we're seriously interested in making sure that their relationship with our people that they referred is a good one, and that we keep them in the loop of what's going on. And so now what happens is consultants will start reaching out and saying, hey, I'm going to reach out to my candidate. What's going on? Right? So I'm like, well, hey, I'd wait a week or two. We're going to get them to where they need to be, but I wouldn't reach out right now. Or now's a perfect time. They just had some major success. Let's celebrate and that win with them. So I would say just overall, though, like Alicia said, it's 100% relationships. Content matters, substance matters, but you've really got to invest the time to make sure that you build those relationships well with the consultants. So hopefully that's helpful.
So as you heard, thank you very much, Jason. Great stuff, right? So you hear how many times or opportunities he does to try to stay in contact with the consultants. I know when I was a broker, and if I had somebody who was like rookie of the year, or and it got announced, it made me feel good that I brought that person into the system. I knew I changed that person's life. So things like that are really awesome. But you hear what he's saying, right? It's not just the big, conferences and, those are all great. It's I know you hear it over and over and over again, but it's the relationship. And I love that you talked about the process. Brokers are always going to know what your process is because it helps them to prepare the candidate. Right? So we're going to have Albert come up now. He's going to be talking about how to speak broker.
Sweet. I guess I'm going to talk about how to speak broker. I could speak English, kind of, sort of. After last night, I'm going to try. I just have to first contest one thing I heard Alicia say earlier. She said something along the lines of chocolate or vanilla, there's no difference, or what's better, but we all know mint chocolate chip is best. Anyway, so I've got two topics that I've got. So first of all, definitely speaking broker is number one. So once you make the connection or you have the relationship, certainly, how do you get through? How do you message something that actually is something that they like to hear so they will send referrals your way as a brand? And then the other thing is just working with a broker lead. And if you're used to working with other types of leads in your franchise development process, working with a broker lead might be different. So the process might be different. Some spins and flavor that you put on your steps might be different. So before that, I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Albert. I lead franchise development at a company called Floor Coverings International. We are owned by First Service Brands, which also owns California Closets, CertaPro Painters, Paul Davis Restoration. It's funny, my first Springboard, I think, was like 15 years ago, if it was even a conference. And I remember sitting in a room just like this with one franchisee at a fitness company that I started from scratch. All of our franchise placements were done via relationships and people that we knew in our communities and members. And then grew that to about 60 units, which was a lot of it was because of the people and the relationships that you meet at these types of conferences. And then I joined Floor Coverings International in 2015. And we had 80 locations, and today, or when I say locations, I mean franchise owners. And today we've got about 300. It's 270 operating with another 30 or so that are in development, about to open soon. This year, will bring on 90 new franchise owners into our network, of which I'll say 85 will be through broker networks and consultants. So certainly share that just to say, I've been where some of you have been before, and now I'm standing up here getting to talk about mint chocolate chip ice cream. So certainly, if you get an opportunity to just put your nose down, engage, and learn, these conferences will be worth their weight in gold. So hopefully I could share a nugget or two. Again, first topic, speaking broker. At the end of the day, when you're trying to have a relationship with a broker and have that relationship bear fruit, which is certainly leads for prospects that might be interested in your brand, you first have to, in that engagement, speak their language. And somebody told me something really corny one time that I carry with me and I use it whenever I can. There's the most tuned into radio station in the world. Anybody know what that is? Love it, yes, WIIFM, what's in it for me? Yeah, it's corny, but I like it because it's true. And at the end of the day, you have to understand from a broker perspective what's in it for them if you want to speak their language and earn their trust and earn their referrals. So a couple things that I think would be important as you're messaging to brokers for reasons why they should send you leads. Number one, they certainly would like to know that your brand has good validation, proven model, strong item 19. Those are good things for them to hear, specifically in their figures. And your figures in item 19 would be good things to be rolling off your tongue. If you have any differentiators as a brand, what makes your brand different in the marketplace? If you have an ice cream brand, why is your ice cream's our thing today? If you have an ice cream brand, why is your ice cream shop different than others? And why should their candidates that they're suggesting to look at your brand want to look at your ice cream shop and your brand? Also, like Alicia was saying before, brokers spend a lot of money, a lot of time, effort, energy with their candidates that they then trust with you as a franchise brand. There are things that are important to them, like how quickly are you going to reach out to them? So you should message that. How quickly do you get on leads? So from the time the referral comes in to first meeting or first conversation, how fast is that? These brokers also own small businesses, right? They file a 1099 or whatever, probably not, but anyway. But they own their own business and they expect to get paid. So your placement fees are important as well, whatever they are. And then, do you close deals? Do you have data around the fact that you close deals? So how many referrals sent over in the last X period of time are converting and turning into deals? Certainly important for them to know. But ultimately, again, these are relationships that they have with these folks that they spend a lot of time and money for, and certainly they'd like to see a return on it when they trust you with their candidate. So those are the couple things that I felt like would be important. From my perspective, I sit in all these conferences as well, the broker conferences, and it's funny because you get to sit and listen to a lot of other brands pitch the brokers on why they're a great brand and why you should show me your brand. Those are the things that I would suggest that you pitch to the brokers and why your brand's great for them to refer their clients to. Every brand seems to want to talk about how great their training and support is. And certainly in a bullet or two, it's good for the brokers to know, but I don't necessarily know if that's going to differentiate. I think a lot of times when I see brands spend 15 minutes on their training and support in a broker conference, I start to see the eyes gloss over, like some of you right now. See, I got to make sure you're paying attention. That's how and the way that I'd suggest you speak to brokers. Then there's the methodologies of communication. So for us at Floor Coverings International, we'll bring in, we do probably 120 to 160 territory checks per week and 30-ish broker leads that come in per week. And we get that type of response from the broker networks for a lot of the reasons that I said before. I think we do good at some of those factors, but we're also very active with our outreach. We've constant phone, email, and text campaigns that go out that are cohesive to the broker networks and the brokers for any type of communication that we want to blast out. One of the measurables on our team, we've got a team of 7 folks on our franchise development team. One of their measurables on a weekly basis that we watch is number of broker one-on-ones that are happening, so those are just the personal relationships. We host regular webinars. Our webinars, we certainly pitch our brand that we invite the consultants to, but we also look for opportunities to educate consultants. If we've got our CEO wants to spend 20 minutes on what he's seeing in the economy and how it relates to the home improvement industry, for example, or we did a webinar recently, we had 60 consultants on a webinar, and it was best practices for using social media to look professional. We just did it as a service, but we got the brokers wanting to engage with our brand, offered them that opportunity to join, and then for sure, at the last 10 minutes, we told them why we're a great brand and why they should send their clients to us. So, and then we also do direct mail, was the one other thing. Direct mail, we send out to consultants as well, just to make sure we're staying top of mind. So that's speaking broker and methodologies of communication. The one last piece that I had to share was more around the sales process. Of the FranDev folks in the room, just if you don't want to put your hand in the air because you're a little shy, if you want to put your thumb up on the table, you define sales process, hopefully, like same thing every time, good funnel, okay, hopefully. If you don't, I'd start there. So first I'd start with defining your sales process. Speed to lead is important. For us, speed to FDD review and speed to validation are also important measures as well. So we want to get the candidate through the FDD review so that that 2-week clock can start ticking. And we want to get them into validation because our validation is extremely strong as quickly as possible as well. But we don't want to put them into validation if they're not ready for it. So what does that mean? We expect our candidates to meet with us twice a week. We want to blot out the sun. So I think that, Jason, you were saying something like that earlier, but we certainly want, as they're looking at other brands, we want to be the first brand that can get them really excited by getting them into validation. So generally, our process really quick. Those are kind of my key factors, but our process really quick. Intro call, business overview, FDD review. Then we have them do a personality assessment and same meeting do a marketing conversation. Then we have them in validation, then a discovery day, and then an expected signing that goes along with the discovery day, an agreed upon signing date. So that's the short end of our process. And I'm from New Jersey, I speak fast, so I'm happy to fill in any blanks. Do we questions now or later? Yeah. I want to follow Alicia's rules. She can yell at me if I break the rules. So she said questions at the end. I want to follow rules. That's our process in general. A couple of the broker-specific things that need to be injected into your sales process, and again, you heard a lot of it from Jason, it was really good stuff. The frickin' frack is really important, so after each meeting you have with a client, even if it's a simple, meeting went great, nothing substantive to share from this conversation, or maybe I learned something here or there, just letting them know that you had the conversation after each one, that's particularly important. Certainly, understanding the roles that you have at different times. Some brokers don't want you to touch the funding conversation with their candidate. Some brokers do. Having that up front, but understanding your roles throughout the process would be important as well. And then at the end of the day, be a partner. And I think that that's all encompassing as it relates to things that you need to inject in your sales process when you're working with broker leads. But remember, they're people, the brokers' candidates are people that they've spent a lot of time, money, and effort and energy on, and it's just your job to stay really close with the candidate and is equally close with the broker. And if that means frick and frack, if that means understanding roles, if that means sharing something that came up in a conversation about a spouse or a funding issue, or maybe I'll do this full time, but maybe I won't, and that was different than what you heard in the beginning, just be a partner and make sure all lines of communication are as open and as wide as possible. So those are my 2 talking points or bullets, and I think I'm good.
I don't know why they think I'm so tough. I just like to save questions at the end so all my speakers can speak. But you heard what Albert was talking, and for those of you who do not know what frick and frack is, right, because we talk all our own lingo, that's just the communication, right? So as a broker, if I didn't hear from my brands when I had candidates working through, I had a process where I would call them every Friday. And although, you see the blonde and the lipstick and all the high heels, I'm a businesswoman. My brands knew I was going to call them. So that was a routine. So like Albert said, even if you don't have something to say, the fact that you're engaging your consultants means that you're a team. And we need to have that in order to get the process through. So my last speaker is going to be Michael Mudd's going to come up. Michael's going to talk about relationships and marketing. And I think you could have probably, we picked 2 for Michael. Michael could have just gone on for a lot longer, as all the gentlemen can. So Michael, come on up. And you have your signs.
Hi guys, happy Friday. Happy Friday. Everyone's good? I'm going to start my timer. I want to stay on time. My name is Michael Mudd. I'm the CEO of a company called Brand One Franchise Development. I'm excited to be here. Hey guys, I'm going to do a kind of a show of hands because I can tailor this message to the audience. So just who here are franchisors? And then keep your hand up. Who's considering potentially going into the consultant group that's not working with them right now? Anyone? Okay, a few. Okay, very few. All right, who's developer? Who's actually frontline working with consultants right now? Developers that just want like tips? Not as many. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of context. So I've been in franchising for 20 years, and that whole time I've worked with consultants. To give you some perspective, when I started working with consultants, the leads came in on fax machines. Seriously. We'd wait for the fax to come in. That was a hot lead, right? We had to get it out the fax. When I started in franchising, our top lead source that we had out there was the Wall Street Journal. I'm gonna give you, this is even before like portals were starting to develop. So consultants had like changed and moved. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm gonna see if I'm so tall. This will go up, yeah, there we go. Thank you, Red. Red's in the back, he's giving me tips. Yeah, we've been doing it a long time. So we started Brand One 8 years ago, and Brand One is the nation's premier franchise development firm. We help 17 brands in our current portfolio grow. And we help them grow primarily by getting candidates that they can't access their own, but by themselves. And we do that with reputation, we do that with relationships. We work with a ton of different consultant groups. We also do some organic development to get it traditionally the way that some of you probably are doing development as well. We work with brands in all different life cycles. So we work with micro-stage brands. We have a lot of emerging growth brands. And we also work with enterprise brands. So as an example, SkyZone is one of our new clients. And SkyZone is an $800 million system, right? They are doing enterprise level sales. So they are working with Brand One because we get them access to candidates they can't get without us. Okay, so they can go look at the park level experience, and they're going to have people that come through the website. But consultants will get you access to candidates that you might not be able to get otherwise. We can bring in a way more sophisticated candidate, a way more prepared candidate that's going to produce better AUV for the system. Now I'm going to go back to Menchie's. So some of you that are considering this, Menchie's came into market. I started working with them. They had 11 stores, and I helped them grow up to 550. And Menchie's was in this yogurt boom when there was a lot of excitement. They didn't need to work with consultants. Menchie's just didn't. They had so much activity that came in through their website. Everyone wanted to get in the space. So most brands would say, let's just do this traditionally. But Amit was like, well, let's block our competition. So he went in as a defensive move to consultants. It was kind of interesting. But in the process, and this is why I'm going to talk a lot about consultants, is we were able to validate that the volume that a consultant-generated candidate was producing was better than what was coming in organically for the brand. And it was kind of like a head scratch, like, why is that? Why? And what we learned is the consultant is more prepared. These candidates that come in from consultants are looking to get into business. They're not necessarily falling in love with your brand. And at Menchie's, we had a lot of people that were falling in love with the brand, but it's easy to fall out of love with the brand, isn't it? So when somebody is like working and saying, I want to be a business owner, I'm going to work with a consultant to evaluate all the different industries and the different options, these consultants help them match to, a more prepared brand that's going to bring in a better candidate. So I want to talk a little bit about the process, and I want to talk about when you're engaging a consultant candidate, they're in a different stage of the buying process sometimes. Right? So if you guys are working with leads coming in through social media or any kind of like SEO or just traditional leads, those leads might intersect you at a different time, right? They might be, we call them tire kickers. You ever heard that one? Or they're just not ready to buy their information shopping. Good consultants are going to give you a candidate that is fully prepared to make a decision within 2 months. So you really need to design a process that is able to inform this candidate to make a decision in that period of time. And they're going to evaluate options. So I'm going to get a little bit tactical here. Like, how do you work with consultants? So we heard a lot that all consultant groups are not the same. They are very different, right? Red Boswell over at IPG, his company runs completely different than Travis Miller. We have other Jessica Durbin's in the back of the room at FranNet. They run it way different over there. So it's like, how do these organizations set up? And then they're also independent consultants within those organizations. So the individual consultants are different. The way they communicate is different. So it's really important, I think, for you to understand for your specific brand, what is the best consulting group to work with, or what blend of consulting groups to work with. Restaurants are tricky, right? There's a lot of consultants don't like restaurants. So you have to understand what groups are going to support a restaurant brand. Home services are a little easier. But when you look at like a SkyZone, that's a $3.5 million investment. So what consultant groups are going to be best for SkyZone? There is a specific blend of consultants that I would recommend for a brand like that, because you're looking for a very sophisticated, high-level type of a candidate. It's a different type of a profile. And these groups are going to have different mixes of these profiles, so you have to get the right blend. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about just get tactical. So as you need to stand out, first and foremost, guys. There are a lot of amazingly talented developers and amazing brands when you go into these consultant groups. So first thing you need to do is understand this communication that's happening between the developer and the consultant. And they call that frickin' frack. To me, that's the pixie dust of working with a consultant. Okay, consultants are not lead generators. What they're doing is helping a candidate evaluate franchising, and there's back-end communications where you're working with the consultant who's giving you information about this candidate, and you're giving them information about the candidate, and together you're helping them make a decision. So if candidates hit fear and anxiety, that's the biggest thing that is going to prevent something from happening, is people have fear about this decision. And consultants are really good at addressing that. Okay, so a lot of developers, if you work with a great consultant, you can work on your opportunity. They're really listening for fear. They're listening for manifestations of that, and they're addressing fear and anxiety and feeding it back to you. That communication is very important. I would say just make sure you maintain that and communicate in a way that a consultant wants to communicate. Sometimes they like text, sometimes they like phone, sometimes they like email. So you have to really get to know each individual consultant. Now, to stand out, there's a lot of ways. You've heard like skits, there's all kinds of things. I just personally like to stand up and be impressive. You really need to impress upon them that you are worthy to receive their lead, right? So that's the best thing I can tell you, is you gotta stand out. And once you get the lead, you need to frickin' frack. It takes a long time to build the relationships. This is a game of intimacy. So I'll tell you how I did it real quick. I worked with the brand at Relax the Back. Relax the Back was a no-namer. I wanted to be a big person in franchising, and my brand just didn't have a huge amount. So I wrote handwritten notes to every single consultant after a conference. I would go to their conferences, I would meet 5 people, I would have meaningful relationships with those 5 people, typically over a breakfast meeting or a lunch meeting. I would genuinely get to know their family, their kids, what they're interested in, what are their hobbies, and then I would go back and I would write a note about how much I appreciated that meeting, and I look forward to working with them. And I did that over and over and over again, and eventually you start meeting everyone, and they start sending in leads, and you build your own reputation. Holiday cards are important, territory checks are important. If you are not using a territory check as a way to connect with a consultant, you're missing it, period. If they're sending a territory check, you better have a 3-minute pitch video that you're popping in there, or tell them why they should be showing you more often. Use the territory check as a way to connect to them. Deals create deals, period. So when you do a deal, if you're not spending time to really write a deal announcement, like, you need to celebrate that. You need to celebrate the consultant. You need to tell them within the announcement, because every time you do a placement within these organizations, you have an ability to talk to people about that placement. Use that as a way to pitch, to market your company. So when you think about it, you're always marketing your brand to the consultants. So you have to almost think that instead of marketing directly to the candidate, which is important, the process does that, you need to also create a platform that markets directly to the consultant, and think about that. What's the best way to touch them? What's the best way to connect with them? What's the best way to be top of mind? And then you build a relationship that's on trust, like, and respect with these consultants, and the consultants will send you their candidates. And you need to treat those candidates like they're gold. You really do. Give them a red carpet experience. Pay these consultants as fast as you can when a placement happens. That does matter. Do not let them wait. Just pay them like that. That matters to them. 24-hour payment times, that actually will set you aside with these people. So, and there's a lot of tricks, guys, but what I would say is a ton of people will help you. So if you have not worked with consultants, just pull someone aside and they'll tell you, this group is who I think you should work with, or these consultants are who I think you should work with. Because once you get a good home run with a consultant, they will tell 20 other people. That's the crazy thing. So all you need to do is go in and make an impression. You start to build a relationship. Once you have one success, ask them, can you tell 20 people about what we just did here together? And they will. And then at that point, it starts to create a snowball, and you get a flywheel, and then activity will flush in behind that. But anyway, thanks, guys.
So a little side note on that. My very first placement was a 3-pack with Menchie's 10 years ago. Swear to God. Yeah.
Did you go to the Discovery Day?
Yeah. Out in California. Yeah. We went together. Yeah. Aaron, I know you had a question. We have time for 2 or 3 questions maybe. Go ahead, Aaron. Loud so everybody can hear you.
As the emerging brands here evaluate whether or not brokers networks are going to work or not, could you guys speak to the upfront investment in terms of joining these networks, as well as the amount of money that you need to pay in commissions for your brand specifically, so we can do a cash flow analysis?
Yeah, I'm going to just say one word and then I'll let them. It's very different, right? And that's why I said not every broker group is the same. Like not all broker groups. Each one to join is different, and requirements are different. And then I'll let the gentleman talk a little bit about payments for the consultants.
It's highly complicated, actually. Can you guys hear me? Check. Okay. Wow, this one doesn't move as good. I'm going to pull it out, sorry. So each group's a little different, so there's a variety of different types of structures. So there are oftentimes you pay payments to either get into the network. It's not the real name, we call them racking fees. So you would pay a racking fee to come into the group, you would do a launch call, and then at that point you would pay commissions. There's also sometimes called aggregate fees, which are on top of the commissions when you do placements. There are sometimes annual fees, sometimes there's monthly fees. So there's a variety of different structures, guys. So I would tell you on a budget plan, we can move a brand very effectively with about $130,000 to $180,000 annual budget. Okay, so that would include even travel expenses. So there's conferences that you go to, you pay for conference fees. Now you can go big and you can sponsor conferences. You can do other things within these consultant groups. So I mean, you could do like a small strategy, and I would say make sure you right size what you're trying to do to the growth you're trying to achieve and get in with the right groups. But you can go probably as low as 60,000 on an annual budget if you want to be really light, and you probably could spend 300,000 annual or more depending on what you're trying to do within the consultant groups. Would you guys want to add anything on that one?
I can just talk about our commissions.
Yeah, please.
So we pay for a single unit placement, 35,000, 2 units, 45,000, and then a 3 unit deal is 55,000. There's people that are below that, there's people above that. So I think the best thing too is to talk to your point of contact at the consultant groups and find out what your similar investment levels are charging, and you figure out how that can work with what you charge for a franchise fee. I also see a lot of new franchisors coming in really low on a franchise fee because I think that's going to be a big advantage, right? I don't think the franchise fee doesn't really become an issue when you're working with someone who wants to buy a franchise. So you need to make sure you have enough money baked into the franchise fee to cover the consultant commissions, your in-house developer commissions, and then some money left over, hopefully, to cover some of these other expenses to go to these conferences and for the annual fees or monthly fees, whichever one you look at. But lay them all out. Talk to every group, find out what those fees are, how long they last or you're committed to, and again, the spray and pray method is not great. That's what we did in the beginning, and I would recommend that a new brand going into the consultants tries to locate 1 or 2 groups and just really get precise and hone in and go deep with them.
And I'll just add, the margin in your franchise fee versus your placement fee is very important. So if you're giving away, quote unquote, 100% of your franchise fee to pay a broker or consultant, you need to take your franchise fee up. There needs to be margin in it, and you need to run the whole P&L and everything else, and it should cover salaries of the FranDev team and marketing and everything on the FranDev P&L. So anyway, I'll just quickly answer our placement fees. We're 1 unit 35, 2, which is our standard deal, is 50, and then 75 for 3.
Thank you. And I will say this too. This is one of the reasons sometimes we do turn down a brand because their budget doesn't really, like they want to pay out, $8,000 or something to our consultants. I know they won't get traction. It just won't happen. And it's a waste of money for them to come in, and I don't want them to have a negative experience. So being very candid and transparent, which is part of responsible franchising, is really important. Thank you, Aaron, for that. We're out of time. I do start and end on time. I apologize for that, but I wanted to get all this information. These guys are fantastic. I'm here for a little bit. Joan will be here, and what can I say? I have to say it. All of you who know me know I'm going to say it. Have a fantastic day. Thank you, everyone.